This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. But I am sporting a beautiful Toronto celebration, Christmas celebration background behind me because, well, I'm going to spend some time in Toronto just before Christmas, visiting some friends. But in the meantime, we are here on December the 15th, 2023. 10 days away from the big day. We're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of American Graffiti. I would have been 1 year old when that came out because I was born in 72. And we'll be talking a little bit about Caveman as well, which I have here on Blu-ray, and I love that art cover of that. Back when you had to beat it before you could eat it. Folks, I'll give you one of the cavemen himself. Before he was driving along the strip there talking to Ron Howard and company in their car. Folks, I'll give you Ed Greenberg. How do you do, Ed?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well.
Yes, we need to do a little caveman lingo here to start off with, just like I did with Carl Gottlieb whenever I had him on here. Just get started. Did you have your ool today?
I did. I had a very nice ool.
You had some nice ool? Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't get personal, so I won't ask you if you had sug.
I knew you were going to say that when you said I won't get personal, because the first thing was in my mind was, how do I bring in Zug Zug? Because those are the two people remember.
Well, I don't want to get into politics either because I know that'll make you go, I.
And we also, as Carl may have told you, kind of when we had something we had to say beyond was it an 18-word language that was actually in the script?
I don't know.
I think it was, and we found ourselves inventing words.
Well, tell me on your day-to-day basis, do you encounter any manchas?
Manchas, mancha, monsters?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Monsters?
Yep.
Metaphorically, I would have to say, yes, I do. And strictly, I like to stay away from them, but we do live up in the hills, and my wife saw a few months ago out on the deck, she saw a mountain lion.
Well,
Just
that's a
laugh.
mancha.
That is a mancha, yeah. But as we say up here, they were here first.
Did she scream "Aye" and say matcha?
Next time. Next time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, before we get into detail on this, now that I got you schooled on that, I'd like to get some of your background and what led you to get into the business.
Okay, so I was always I loved movies,
Yep.
I just loved movies, and I got to see a lot of them actually as a kid because my dad was a career Air Force officer. So we moved around a lot and we lived on Air Force bases where there were usually a few movie theaters, and they changed movies, as I remember it, almost every day. And for a long time, I was a paper boy, and they had this deal on the base that paper boys could go to the movies for free on the base
Oh,
too.
nice.
So yeah, so it was like, I'd jump on it. And it was back in the day where, your parents would let you out of the house and then you'd show up for dinner. It wasn't like anybody was going to get kidnapped or all the rest of that. So we would just get on our bicycles and go see a movie.
Do you remember some of the titles that you saw?
Well, in my day, I mean, there was a lot of, because my dad was also part of what he did in the Air Force was he was an astrobiologist. He would get he worked a lot in, around, and we were at Andrews Air Force Base, Washington, D.C. And when I was a little kid, there were a lot of sightings. So my dad would get reports. That was part of his work. So there, I remember Forbidden Planet and The Day the Earth Stood Still. I
You
mean,
know
those were
what? I
jaw dropping.
interviewed somebody from the day the earth stood still.
Oh, really?
Yep. Um, one of the child actors that's from that movie, and I can't believe his name is escaping me right now, but yeah, in Forbidden Planet, I've seen that. That was Leslie Nielsen when he was being serious.
Right. Before he found his real
Yeah.
métier.
Those were great movies because I took some film courses to improve my craft as a film critic, and one of the courses was sci-fi, and we watched Day the Earth Stood Still, and we watched Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I also love those MGM musicals. And in fact, little plug here, free plug for the Criterion channel.
Hmm.
And I have the Criterion channel, and every now and then when I'm looking for something, I'll just stream whatever their, movies are that are like right now they have an MGM musical, what do you, festival, I guess.
You have a
On
favorite? I say Singing in the Rain for me for.
Well, Singing in the Rain is sort of, yeah, you can't not love Gene Kelly around that lamppost, you
Yep.
know. And the other one was he also with Donald O'Connor,
Donald O'Connor flipping off that wall doing
and
the
that
flip.
was Singing in the Rain too,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Interestingly, what was her name?
Debbie Reynolds.
No, no, I
No?
did. I have the same voiceover agent as a woman who was a character actor in all of those movies. Yeah, she played the music teacher.
Oh, I
Because
know who you're talking about. Yeah.
what's her name? And
I
she
don't know, but she was the one that was doing the voice work with Gene Hagen in the film.
and she
Yeah.
told me years later that they were working on another, sort of more minor movie at the same time. And she said, we got to go do Singing in the Rain just because we're shooting it and it's in my contract. But that other movie was the one they thought was going to be the breakout. Singing in the Rain was just like their day gig.
Hmm.
So I
Singing
always
in the
thought,
Rain got cheated because I mean an American in Paris, which I think was a wonderful musical, but it won all the Oscars the previous year. And Singing in the Rain really got cheated the following year in Oscars. And I think Singing in the Rain was a better and stronger movie than An American in Paris.
well, now I have to go watch them both again.
Yeah. I
And
like both. And they're
it
both with
just may
Gene
be that
Kelly.
they may be on Criterion Channel right now because they're both MGM musicals, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I like both, but between the two, I think Singing in the Rain is definitely um I think the stronger film, but I like a lot of movies from back then as well, you know. I love venturing back and looking at stuff that came out before I was born. I was a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock's movies. In fact, he
Oh yeah.
changed the way I look at movies. Yeah, I had his granddaughter on the show here back in 2016, and that was pretty cool. Um, and I like, Stanley Kubrick and Billy Wilder. There's all kinds of great stuff that came back out back then.
What's not to like? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, great filmmakers. There are new ones coming out too. I'm seeing movies from, really excellent film. Movies are great. I've always loved them, and that's I was a history major in college. I never, I didn't know how to even do that, get into. And then I read I was just finishing up at Berkeley, and I'm not quite sure what I really wanted to do. And I read in the San Francisco Chronicle that Peter Bonner's of the committee, which I had seen, the committee was for us Berkeley students going to the committee. Do you know about the committee? You must, because Carl. So
Oh,
Carl
Carl.
was in the committee. That's how I actually got cast in Caveman. The committee from 63 to 73 was Second City, in Chicago, right?
Oh, okay, okay. I know what you're
And they
talking
have
about.
another one in Toronto. So one of the directors of the Second City came to San Francisco to start. He was more political than, a lot of people. So he started a Second City style improvisational theater in San Francisco, in North Beach. It was almost literally right across the streets from famous City Lights bookstore. So it was a real hip neighborhood, and I don't use that in a cliche sense. There was a lot going on there, a lot of intellectual stuff. The musician, and the Haight-Ashbury was right across San Francisco, which is a small city. So it was all, kind of happening together. And the committee, they did political satire and improvisation, and it's hard to, you can actually find a movie. They did a show in LA, and somebody came and filmed it. And that is incidentally, Tom Laughlin saw the committee and hired a bunch of us right from the stage to being Billy Jack.
Mm-hmm.
So so I saw the Peter Bonners, who I had seen a number of times on stage, and was super talented. And Peter has gone on to be probably one of the top television comedy directors of the last, I'm going to say 40 years, and was also the dentist in the Bob Newhart show. So Peter has done okay. So Peter was teaching a mime workshop. I thought, oh, I can sign up for a mime workshop with this Peter Bonners guy, just to see what it is. So he was doing Viola Spolin theater games. I don't know if you know about Viola, but she's like the godmother of improvisational theater. Second City comes indirectly out of Viola. Her son, Paul Sills, was the first director of the Second City for many, many years. So I did the games with Peter, and he kept telling me I was really good at the games. He really liked what my instinct for it. So at the end of the 6-week or 8-week workshop, whatever it was, I said, say, Peter, because it was a mime workshop. It was all like, dealing with space. Is there a place I can do this stuff and talk at the same time? And he said, let me take you over to the committee. Del Close is the director. I'll introduce you to him. I think he does daytime workshops over there.
Okay.
And I met Del. Del told me to come to the workshop the next day. I got 2 or 3 minutes into a scene, and Del stopped me and said, and he had been like, Del had a really rough style of directing, get off my stage, people disrespecting the work. And I said, stop the scene. Okay, what did I do wrong? He said, no. He said, you didn't blow it, kid. You've got a great sense of reality. He said to me. Anyway, long story short, he hired me into the committee shortly after that. And the committee was, as I say, one of the most, I was doing 13 shows a week at night. I started getting into voiceovers. All of a sudden I was like a public personality in the entertainment world in San Francisco. And out of that, stuff started happening. That's how I got into the business.
Well, you'd have to be a history major to star in Caveman because you got to know your history. That's all about history.
Yeah, right. What did it say? Something about the movie. I don't know why I saw this the other day, but it said the credit over the opening of the movie said 1 zillion years BC, October 7th.
I love that. October 7th. It's like Monty Python saying around tea time, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was very Monty Python-esque.
Yeah. Well,
So yeah,
according to Internet Movie Database, now I haven't seen this movie, but the first credit you're listed for is Terror in the City. Was that your first movie?
I couldn't tell you. I've seen that before, and I don't know what that is. I'll be
Okay.
perfectly honest.
Well, talk to me a little bit about Billy Jack, because that will come out the year before I was born, and I know my mom was a fan of that film.
So when did that? Because you said just a minute. Okay, so American Graffiti was
73.
73.
Yeah, the year
Yeah.
after I was born. Yep.
Oh, okay. So Billy Jack was before that.
Yeah, 71.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want me to tell you about Billy Jack?
Yeah, talk a little bit about Billy Jack and working on that. Now, that's been a while since I've seen that,
Yeah.
but I know that my parents like that film quite a lot, so especially my mom. So,
Yeah. Okay, so Tom Laughlin, the
hmm
director, who went on to be a Jungian psychologist, I know. So Tom Laughlin had this script. He was going to play Billy Jack. It had a Native American theme somewhere. And he came to and there was parts in the movie for free school. Some of it was set at a free school. Tom Laughlin's wife played a free school teacher. He came to the committee and he had a good idea. He would hire us, some of us, Howard Hessman, Alan, the director of the committee, Alan Meyerson, Danny Barrows, who later became Beans Morocco. Anyway, a bunch of us, and we went down to Santa Fe, and he actually figured out a way to work some of the committee scenes that he had seen on the stage into the movie, like that one with us in the park, where Howard is sticking up a stick up on Danny Barrows, who is now Beans Morocco. I never know what to call him anymore. But and I'm the young directing student, right, who sees you didn't do this right. And then they stuck in the sheriff from the movie to play the other. So yeah, so we did that and some other scenes. And what happened with Billy Jack was Warner Brothers. This is an interesting sort of movie story. Stop me if you've heard this.
no, no, go for it.
Warner Brothers was not in love with the movie and they didn't, market it very well. Tom Laughlin, as I understand, sued to get his movie back from Warner Brothers and basically invented a marketing strategy called four-walling,
hmm
where you, the individual, sell your movie to individual theaters. That's what it's
Kind
called.
of like what Taylor Swift did with her concert movie this year during the
I
strike.
I I guess. Yeah,
Mhm.
I guess, right. And Beyonce did the same thing with hers. And now I'm
Yep.
seeing other ones that's a new. So yeah, so that was Fort Walling. And off of that strategy, Tom Laughlin made a fortune and Billy Jack became this kind of cultural phenomenon that is, if you watch it now, it's like, oh, that's so 70s. But
Yeah, but it's those
nonetheless,
70s is fine with me, you know? I
yeah,
love going back and seeing
exactly.
what it was like back then, you know? And
Right, right. So,
yeah.
we were in Santa Fe. We were working in Tom Laughlin's movie. We were together, and it was great. It was fun. It was being in the movies. Here I had watched them my whole life, and now, holy mackerel, I'm in the movies now.
Well, American Graffiti came out in 73, but it's so 60s because it's set in 1962.
Yeah, yeah. It's George Lucas's coming of age story,
You
essentially.
know, he did THX 1138, and then he followed that up with American Graffiti.
Oh,
American Graffiti was the film that pretty much paved for Star Wars, you know?
right.
Yeah. I like
Um,
this movie, yeah.
Graffiti.
I love American Graffiti.
Oh, I tell people that, of the movies I've been, American Graffiti, I tell people, watch it. It's a great American film.
Mhm.
And to this day, believe it is. And I've watched it again recently, and it's incredible. And Ricky Dreyfuss and I were in two separate cars,
Mhm.
waiting for our shot, all night shooting, right? In cars. So it was a big deal to set it up, just the technology. So he and I were across from each other. I had never met him. We started improvising in character. I don't remember the exact amount of time we improvised in character while Lucas was getting the shot ready. But man, I'll tell you, when they shot that scene, he and I were high school buddies to the core, just from we were rehearsing, right? So that was super fun.
You know, Richard Dreyfuss is now apparently doing some of the conventions. I've never met him, but I know somebody that works at the record store here who met Richard Dreyfuss. I one of the conventions, I think, in Toronto, and spoke very highly of meeting him. And Dreyfuss is very talented. He's an Academy Award winner for The Goodbye Girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm glad he's doing the cons, you know, and because I see pictures all the time of even other guests I've interviewed who had their table close by his and spoke very highly
Are
of
you
Richard
talking about
Dreyfuss.
just American Graffiti convention or more
No,
general?
more of everything. Like he would be there. I think the guy I know that met him got something Jaws related signed by him or something like that. And but but I think American Graffiti. I know he had a bit appearance in The Graduate, but I think American Graffiti, I think, was what put him on the map.
Oh, definitely. A few people, as
Yep.
we all well know,
Ron
Harrison Ford,
Howard. Yep.
Ron Howard, and Suzanne Summers was the girl in the car,
Yeah,
right?
you know, I gotta say something because rest in peace, Suzanne Summers and Cindy Williams,
Yes,
two
and
individuals I grew up watching and loving.
yeah,
Um, Here's a parallel I often make with American Graffiti because I grew up in a Christian home and I believe in the Bible, and I'm not here to preach to you, but there's an interesting little thing I always got out of American Graffiti because Dreyfus spends the entire night trying to find this woman in the car. And he
oh,
sees her across the way there in her car, and she's got this gorgeous smile, you know. And I mean, the movie's 50 years old. I don't want to spoil it for people, but there's a moment when he speaks to her at some one time over a phone, but he never makes that physical connection. I always found it interesting that when he is up in a plane and he kind of looks at the window and he looks down, there's the car going along the highway, and I'm sitting here thinking, she knows exactly where he's going. How much you want to bet she's going to be there when he gets there? And I looked at her almost like a guardian angel type character.
Oh, that's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even though it's not that's just my interpretation, but there was something very mysterious about Suzanne Summers in this movie, you know?
Well, great movies they have the gift of being able to invest you, the viewer, in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm just thinking right now. Yeah, and it's funny that Lynn Marie Stewart, who was Cindy's best friend for uh, I still when I the rare times when I'm in contact with Lynn Stewart, I refer to it. We joke that I call her Bobby and she calls me Kip.
Yeah, she was in American Graffiti as well, was she not?
Lynn Marie Stewart, yeah,
Yes.
she was my girlfriend when the cars were passing by and
Ah, that's right.
huge
That's right.
line.
That's
It
right.
was it was Dreyfus saying, "Hey Bobby or Kip, hey Kip, she's got something for your rippling biceps or something
Oh, that's right.
like
That's
that."
right. That's right. Okay. Okay. I got that. Okay. You
Fame.
know, if she's interested, put me in touch with her. I'd love to have her on here. But
Yeah, I know that I'll reach out to her and see if
oh
she's in.
yes. Yes. You had a lot of names. Like, I mean, Harrison Ford in this. You had
I've
Paul
heard of
Lamont.
him. Yeah,
You've heard of Harrison Ford? I wonder what he's done since American Graffiti.
he's acted in a few things.
He's acted in a few things, you know.
Yeah.
I
Um,
love Harrison Ford.
yeah, he's great. And it's a great Hollywood story too, Harrison Ford, not to get off on a tangent, but he was a carpenter to the
Yeah.
stars as a young guy. And I'll tell you another story. I don't even remember the movie, but it was some war movie. And there were a bunch of I think it was like Nazis that walked in, Nazi officers that walked in, and there was a German officer who was their boss. And they were background, basically background. And there was Harrison Ford. And you could now in retrospect, maybe, oh, that's Harrison Ford. But you could see this guy acting, but like really into it, really in the moment, subtle, but just bam, there he was. And I thought, yeah, I can see how this guy became that huge movie star.
Well, in American Graffiti, of course, he's gonna race against Paul Lamont. He was basically this was his template to the Millennium Falcon.
Right, right. Anyway, yeah, that movie did have that kind of magic thing. That
Wolfman Jack's voice being all through it.
right,
Yeah,
right.
I
No,
love the
that's
music.
really beautiful. Well, I mean, it was written and directed by George Lucas, for
Mhm.
God's sake. He's had a few hits in his
He's
day.
had, yeah. Charles Martin Smith was funny in this, you know, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Oh man. So do you drive alongside Richard Dreyfuss anymore? You guys don't do that anymore?
No, that was just, because he went off and became at the end, he's like a draft. He goes to Canada to avoid the draft, right? Isn't that his thing in graffiti?
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah.
here we are talking about it. I mean, yes, I'm in it, but look, you know, it's an iconic American film that everybody can relate to because it's about what do I do now? What's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
I'm still in that position. I'm 51. I'm still wondering what's next.
I'll tell you, man, the whole planet has just come out of a crazy historical event. And I
Yeah,
think
I worked through the whole
generally,
thing too.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that everybody's kind of looking at what's next.
Yeah, I work as a cleaner. That's what I do for money. So I worked through the whole darn thing. And yeah, I could have done without.
Cleaning, cleaning hospitals.
I did clean hospital for about 13 months.
Yeah.
Um, Very toxic environment, mind you, but at least the one I was in. But nonetheless, it was great work as far as that goes. And right now, I clean for a private company, and I clean mostly overnights, which I prefer because it's nice and quiet, and I can, I don't cleaning washrooms is never fun, but I prefer to do it when there's nobody there because there's nothing worse than cleaning during the day and have people just disrespectfully walk into the washroom while you're trying. You get this thing up front, clean. We're here cleaning, and they just walk in. I had that happen in a woman's washroom one time. Today, Jeepers, a Me Too movement would be all over me for just being in there ahead of time cleaning. you know, but
Yeah.
any
So and in fact, graffiti, the way we got cast, was out of the San Francisco casting office of the top casting lady in San Francisco was named Ann Brebner. So they all came up and they knew the community and Dell, who was the director who hired me in, and all kinds of public personalities around the acting scene in San Francisco ended up in American Graffiti.
talk about the cars. That must have been something interesting to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I was one night. So
Yeah.
the cars, I didn't see the full, I may have over the years seen some of them, but it was like me and Rick Dreyfuss, man. And then it was
Well,
done.
that's not a bad memory. You and Richard Dreyfuss.
I'll tell you something. It is one of my favorite acting experiences doing that with him
Hmm.
because I love to improvise, and here was a young guy who just had a knack, had a gift, and it brings people together fast and fast
Well,
and
when we get
furious.
to laughter for a change, we will talk about improvisation because I know that's a big thing with that. But we got to talk some caveman, and uh,
Uh,
we saw this at the drive-in when I was young. I love that poster, the cover art for Caveman. I had Carl Gottlieb on here, directed the film. He was delighted to talk about it, and there's so many great scenes. Number one, the dinosaurs were so bloody funny in the movie. Everything Ringo Starr being kissed by the snap um, you know, I'm missing out his Jack Gifford as the blind
Gilbert,
dead
yeah.
Guilford.
Besides, well, in addition to, I made a few besides me and Carlos.
Oh,
Carl,
show that again, please. Show that again.
okay, this is me and Carl Lumley as Bork and Kalta,
Yeah.
two cavemen, and uh, yeah, Jack also, who was an Oscar. I guess later he won an Oscar as Best Supporting Actor. But Jack Gilford was, until the day he died, Jack Gilford was a dear close friend of mine,
I
as is Carl Lumley. Now he's one of my closest friends, and it's all out of 4 months in 4 months in Mexico with all these cavemen. And
well,
Shelley Long
yeah.
became a very dear friend for a number of years after that. They were all, it was quite an interesting crew of people.
One of the funniest scenes with Jack Gilford is when he gets wandering off by himself, and this shadow is cast over him, and he's like, going like this into it and going like this, and he's underneath a Tyrannosaurus, and the Tyrannosaurus is just kind of like looking around. What is this? He starts going like this under his belly, and the Tyrannosaurus' tongue is out. He's loving this, and then he takes a stick and whacks it. The Oh,
We have a big locations where in outside of Durango,
Mhm.
Mexico. And we shot a lot of the scenes there. Anyway, it may be too long a story. We asked it what Jack would say, but what they didn't know about the location was that a dust storm would come up every day at lunch. They had scouted it. So we would be eating lunch, with dust in our, and Jack every day would say, he would push back his tray and he'd say, "Could we talk about dinner for just a minute?" Anyway, Jack was great. I love Jack Guilford.
Yeah. And Shelley Long, this was pre-Cheers for her.
3 cheers for Shelley.
Hmm.
Yep.
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 What's she doing nowadays? I don't hear much about her, but I mean, I always liked her.
Yeah. Shelley kind of faded out of the public view is all I know. I was dear friends with Shelley for a number of years. And then when Cheer was over, I
And she
just
was in
did.
the Brady Bunch movie. I mean, she was good at playing the Florence Henderson role, so
Right. And
yeah.
Betty Thomas directed that, I think.
Yeah, she did Private Parts, the Howard Stern movie. I love that film. Yep.
Yeah, and Betty was out of Second City. So, a lot of these people, that's quite a community. And of course, there's the most famous ones, Bill Murray and John Belushi and all. But I think it's the 60th anniversary. I was at the 50th of Second City because I also directed Second City for a while later. Um, and it's a family. It's like most families, it has, there's a lot of aspects to it, but coming out of that improvisational training and mindset and connecting and through laughter to other folks. Well, laughter for a change is built on that principle. And yeah, so it's a big community of people, and Shelley was certainly one of them.
Abs-
Talented, comedic talent.
And of course, Carl Gottlieb, that must have been interesting, him putting this together and create. I speak English. I never passed French a day in my life, but yeah, I can watch Caveman and know exactly what's being said in it. And but I thought it was interesting that he come up with his own little language for this film that was so simple, anybody can get it.
Right, and it was co-written by Tony Henger or one of those guys. Anyway, yeah, they did that, and it worked. Um, yeah. So Caveman was hard work, but a lot of fun. I mean, we were
Hmm.
running through the jungles, and the other story I tell people sometimes is like, and I had this experience a few times. like we'd be sitting around, as the old cliche goes, that the biggest thing about movies is the waiting, right?
Uh-huh.
They're setting up the shot, or there's a night shot, and you're trying to get it before you're actually on there. And we'd be sitting around waiting for something to happen, just a bunch of cavemen who were, and somebody'd start, like people do when they're bored, tapping on the back of a chair or something. And I'm like thinking, whoa, that is some pretty damn good tapping. Oh, it's Ringo Starr.
Mm-hmm. A toque.
I took.
A
I,
toque.
that was a fun, that was fun.
You know a toque is a loon to Lana, but don't know if Lana's a loon to a toque, but I think Barbara Bach is a loon to Ringo.
You really know this movie.
I do.
Well, we saw, there was that morning when like, hey, wait a minute, Barbara and Ringo, they're like a thing.
And he
That happened on that.
drops her in a mound of shit at the end of the movie.
Yeah, yep, caveman. And when I said, "Oh, let me go look for this picture," I
Yeah.
couldn't, I couldn't find it. And then on the back, it was face down, and it says, "Photo by Mylan Melvin." So Mylan Melvin was Carl's very close friend and a close friend of the committee, who was kind of like, I don't know, he was Carl's guy who, as the movie was coming together, Mylan did a lot of stuff, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
way I found out I was cast in the movie was I came home and there was a message on my, in those days, answering machine, right? And the message was, "This is Mylan. From this moment forward, don't shave anything." And I said, "Oh, I got caveman." That's how I found that out.
Oh wow. Um, were you there the day that Barbara Bach got dropped into the trap? And what was that? What was used to make that?
Well, I don't remember that exact moment or that exact scene, but what I do remember is a lot of that stuff that you see on the screen was like, okay, so the monster's going to be right over there, and they're like, some assistant cameraman will wave a stick, and it's going to try to eat you. So, just act, right? But
Hmm.
that was all post. A lot of that stuff. I don't know for sure about the scene you're talking about, but it's not like there was a big thing of shit there. I don't think.
I would hope not.
I would hope not.
What was it like working with Ringo and Barbara?
Well, I didn't have, I'm trying to think of in this sort of story of the movie, Barbara maybe was in the other caveman, because
Hmm.
yeah, she was John Matusak's
Yeah.
main squeeze.
Yeah.
Uh, Working with Ringo was a pleasure.
I bet.
First, he was just a class act from beginning to end. Fantastic sense of humor. Carl and I were like vegetarian, we're the only one. We were like vegetarians wherever we were on location. We would jog together and run through the streets and real healthy. And one day and the other guys there were drinking and one day I got sick from, I think it was like some ceviche at a really fancy hotel. And I came down the next day and I just felt awful. And I'm sure I looked awful. And across the lobby was Ringo. And I saw him, I said, "Oh, I feel terrible." And Ringo said, "Too much jogging." too much jogging. So, yeah, he had a great sense of humor. Kept,
Carl, of course, your friend Carl, had a nice experience. Speaking of eating, he
yeah,
had a nice experience on the largest egg yolk or omelet. He
right.
went to bust the yolk.
Oh, Carl Lumley.
Yep.
It's funny because for years to this day, Carl Lumley to me is Carlos. And it's because when we were yelling across these big, sets and locations, Carl, hey, Carl, was Carl Gottlieb. So just to constant confusions, to avoid constant confusions, Carl Lumley became Carlos.
Carlos,
So,
okay.
yeah.
That makes
So to
sense.
this day, it's like I'm 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 Eduardo to him, and
Mm-hmm.
he's Carlos to me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he slipped and fell into the egg yolk.
right. Yeah, there are a lot of, I remember, was that the last? No, that wasn't we were in an ice cave at
Oh yeah, Richard Mole playing the abominable snowman. Rest in
right,
peace. We lost him recently too.
that's right.
Yeah.
Um, and Carl and I, on the last day of shooting, Carl did some stunt onto the ice and hurt his shoulder. So here we were, and my wife was down for, just, hey, come on down. It's fun down here. I'll have some extra time. We can hang out in Mexico City, blah, 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 like they do sometimes. Um, and so we fly back in. Now, this is at the end of 4 months. Hair, the whole caveman thing. And Carl Lumley, you know, with hair and thing, and we fly into Dallas, right? Dallas, known as the toughest security. And Carl and I had in our shopping carts, this is crazy. Do you remember I wore a bird
Yep.
on my,
Yep.
we had our clubs with us. We were souvenirs. Carl is like hunched over like this. We go up to security in Dallas. These guys we're like, we're going to jail right now. Anyway, my wife comes bursting through to sort of settle things. She's not now, but was a lawyer. So it's something we laugh about all the time, that moment of coming back through security in Dallas International Airport with our caveman stuff and Carl.
Was she lawyer for the caveman?
No, she was out of that by that time.
Um, of course, you mentioned John Matusek, what a large individual he was, and went on, of course, to do Goonies. I love the scenes where he can't let go of the boulder and he chucks it, but he goes with it, or if he falls backwards,
Yeah.
It's got a lot of great scenes. Dennis Quaid still going strong.
Dennis is doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um, who else? And then Corky. I can't help it. Cork Hubbard, who
yeah,
played the little person
yeah,
cave. Corky passed away, but Corky was tons of fun.
yeah. He had an experience in shit too, much like Barbara.
Yeah, I remember corks being dropped, but
Yeah.
I don't remember Barbara being
Oh, she's
dropped.
dropped at towards the end of the movie, and when Ringo has to make a decision, and I'm like, and they got married afterwards. Boy, he must be really charming.
Well, let me put it this way. He was one of the Beatles. Remember that group?
Hmm. Yep, I do. Faintly, faintly I do. I
Thank you.
remember them saying something about wanting to hold your hand.
And a few other tunes as well.
I've got Yellow Submarine here on Blu-ray, and I got a T-shirt with it, and I've got and I love Hard Day's Night, so
Oh no, that's yeah.
yeah, I
What can
saw
you
those
say?
movies, and I love the Beatles music.
And have you seen that little documentary they did of the new song that's John Lennon? It was a Lennon song from early on, and they've just put it out.
I heard something about that, but I
Oh, you
haven't seen
should,
it.
yeah, I guess you could Google new Beatles song YouTube or something like that.
I did
It,
hear something
it's,
about that, yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting. It also talks about the technology we have today to separate out that not very clear demo and create something out of it. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Um,
so yeah, so that too.
there was another person I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, Evan Kim played the
And
one caveman that spoke English.
see, I don't remember all this stuff. I think I might have the DVD. I gotta watch this movie again.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I got the Blu-ray here, and yeah, he's the one who can speak English, in the film, and which I thought was interesting. And we can't end this interview without mentioning Avery Schreiber because man, he
Thank you.
was born to play a caveman.
Thank you. Avery, I love that man. Loved Avery.
He had the facial expressions, the delivery. I mean, he was absolute perfect casting. And to this day, I laugh my ass off when the torch goes across his ass and he's breaking wind as he's running and his leg is moving up and down like he's a motorcycle.
Well, also speaking of because it's such an important part of my life and my history and so many of these people. I don't know if you know this, but Avery Schreiber is also one of the icons of the improvisational theater history in America. Avery as a stage performer doing improvisational thing and his use of Avery. I love Avery. Loved
He
him. And a
is.
beautiful human being.
I don't
Always
doubt it.
good.
I don't doubt it.
There's always a good side product of talented people who are, great human being. Avery Schreiber. Loved him.
Yeah. Oh, I loved him in Caveman. He was so good in Caveman. Um, let's talk about Laughter for a Change because I know you sent me the link to that and I did get to look at it. And you know what? It's interesting because I'm a big Weird Al Yankovic fan, and Weird Al was saying one of the things he has difficulty doing and he's not good at is improv, but he says that admires comedians that can do it. And you hear stories about like Bill Murray throwing scripts away and just going off the cuff, and
Right.
and whatnot. Improvising comedy is uh, it's brilliant when done right. And I hear a lot of stories about Caddyshack,
Wow.
Cindy Morgan, who played Lacey Underall, was talking about she didn't know the camera was rolling during the scene where she was at the piano with Chevy Chase. And she said if you watch closely, you can see where she notices the camera and she just kind of goes along with it and
Right.
reacts to Chevy Chase.
Right.
Yeah, improv is great when done well. So talk about Laughter for a Change and how it came about because I love the theme behind this.
So because I had done so much and I directed Second City, I met Eric Cabera, a Rwandan filmmaker So this was 2007. The Rwandan genocide, was 2000. The big genocide was 1994 or 5. And Eric had this idea that the way to move Rwanda forward out of that unspeakable darkness into a brighter future, which parenthetically Rwanda has been very, very successful at doing, is instead of just doing endless documentaries about the genocide, do comedy. So I met Eric, and Eric said, I'd like you to come. He heard about what I did. He said, I'd like you to come to Rwanda to help my people learn to laugh again. So through the way it works, the American Embassy in Kigali, Rwanda, and Washington, D.C., the Cultural Envoy program of the U.S. government, I became a cultural envoy to Rwanda to do improv comedy with, and they auditioned a lot of young Rwandan performers, and we had about 20 people in the room, and we worked for a couple of weeks, and we created, I did a lot of theater games with them, these improvisational theater games that I started doing with Peter Bonners, to start my whole career. And then I had them at the end of a couple of weeks. Okay, you guys get together and come up with some ideas for sketch comedy, whatever's in your minds, And the great power of these games is that they connect you to other people in a very trusting way, and part of that is you gain access to your own individual voice and know that it's going to be honored by the other players in the room. It's a great process and very empowering. And we did a show, and a lot of the ambassadors from different countries and the Minister of Culture from Rwanda was there. And there was an old sage who only spoke Kinyarwanda, the native tongue. And he came to the show, and he was from the old days, right? And I asked him, and Eric interpreted, and I said, does anything he saw on the show tonight remind him of the olden days, back in the tribal days, hundreds of years ago? And he said, yeah, he said, when the tribes would war with each other, if they lost the war, they would come back to the hall of the king, and they would reenact the battle, and they would end up sad and, reenact the dead. If they had won the battle, there was dance and celebration in the hall of the king. He said, this reminds me of that. And I thought, my work here is done, So I thought, I came back to America, and I thought, if only in Los Angeles, as big and diverse as it is, I did those kinds of projects that I did in Rwanda in different underserved communities, or with people who had suffered whatever kind of trauma might have been part of their lives. I'm going to start a nonprofit, and that's what I'm going to do, because I love improv. I know it does people good, and I know it builds community. I've had that experience my whole adult life, and this Rwanda experience was sort of the capstone of all of that. And so that became Laughter for a Change, and I got some people to help me, improvisers who wanted to be part of it, and that's Laughter for a Change. And like everybody else, we were a little bit challenged during the pandemic, but we're coming back now. So
yeah, I'm looking at your you get a nice small team there, but but you got some you got a nice diverse cast of people here. Uh, I don't recognize any of the names. Cat Premu looks familiar.
Cat Primo.
Primo, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Cat Primo came to me as a student and has become, just again an important part of this organization for sure, and also just a very very dear personal friend.
Mm-hmm.
You get close to people,
Yeah.
doing improv. You get to know who they are in the best sense.
And Ruth Silts, and go screw her last name, but
Ruth,
she
yeah.
looks familiar as
Well,
well.
Ruth has been in some stuff. Ruth was in the committee with me.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the first time I met Ruth, I was like in the audience and I thought, wow, she's so pretty and so talented and so good at this. And now we're, really good friends. And we still do improv together. We
You know
started.
what I think would be a great idea sometime in the future
Okay.
is to get the whole bunch of you on here in a group Zoom. I think it'd be a great idea to further promote laughter for a change.
That could work. That
Yep.
could,
I would be happy to do that sometime down the road, you know.
right.
Um, yeah, I'd be more than happy to have the bunch of you come on here and do a group thing. Or if they want to come on individually, I'd be more than happy to research them and send them my way. I'm happy to have them come on here and talk about this and give them uh, give your cause further promotion.
Okay, well, I mean, certainly
Hmm.
now we could use more play and more connection and more community building and more positivity and
Yep.
more laughs.
Well, I'm open to have like look, I have one of my supervisors from work come on this show, like everybody has a story, regardless what part of life
So
they're
true.
from,
So
and I don't look at people and say, well, I I don't go after what I consider the big stars or whatever, I love connecting with people from these movies like American Graffiti and Caveman, but I also see an opportunity. Like I had somebody from Revenge of the Nerds come on here back a few months ago, and he was talking about something that he does with a group of people where they go around to different neighborhoods and they pick up the trash and help make the neighborhood cleaned up. And I forget what he called it now. And I said, you know what? Why don't you guys all come on together and further get this word out,
right.
because it might inspire other people in other parts of the world as well. Um, so I'd be happy to have the bunch of you from Laughter for a Change come on here and plug and promote this further. I think it would be fantastic.
Well, let me talk, and as we regroup,
Hmm.
uh, we'll come up with some ideas to do that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And send I'm blanking on her name. I'm 51. So I'm older than you are.
That,
So
thank you very
you're
much.
39. With me being 51, I forget things, So the woman that you was with in
Okay,
American Graffiti,
yeah, Lynn
Lynn, Lynn and
Stewart.
Carl, if they're open to coming on here, I'd be happy to have them as well.
Okay, well, let me reach out and see, and I'll let you know if it's a positive
Yeah.
response.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd be interested to further promote laughter for a change because um humor is great medicine.
Boy, that's what they say, and it's true.
Well, you want me to tell you something? Back in the year 2000, I had a rupture operation, and it's funny, I didn't know I needed it until my dad had it done. And my
Uh-huh.
dad came back and described it because it was down around where the crotch area is.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I've got that too.
My God.
Anyway, I went to the same doctor, and sure enough, like father, like son.
Was it
And
hereditary? I mean, did they say it
I
was?
don't know, but I think it's happening on the other side now as we
Oh,
speak, and I'm like, oh. But I don't know how my dad, after the operation, was able to walk to the car with mom, but mom had to wheelchair me up. There was no way I was. But but nonetheless, I remember the night before because I'd never been under before, and I was worried about the surgery and stuff. And I remember the night before, I think I watched Kingpin with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray, and Caddyshack, you know. And I just remember before I was going under, all I remember before going under was talking about Bill Murray and that friggin' gopher from Caddyshack. Next thing I know, I'm waking up and everything's done, and I'm like, okay. But I needed to watch a comedy before I did that. I just needed something lighter to take my mind off it. And
well, before the pandemic, you see it on the website. We were doing a whole series of improv shows for and with, when we could, kids from Children's Hospital LA.
yep.
Children's Hospital LA has 3,300 beds. I mean, it's a huge, fantastic service for children in LA and their parents.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we would get these kids, they would just, and up there doing these improv games and just watching, parents and little children who had shared a lot of bad news in some cases and just connecting with each other with, smiles and laughs. And it was just a lot of it is you get back every bit as much as you're given, you know. So,
You have favorite comedies growing up?
favorite comedies.
Yeah.
Well, it may have been a little later, but I love Buster Keaton. I mean,
Oh, Buster's brilliant. Oh,
yeah,
I'll go tell you. I did a history of film class back 2000, 2001, 2002, whatever. And one of the films that we watched in that class was Sherlock Jr.
love
And
that.
yeah, I
Love,
don't know how Buster Keaton pulled off some of the visual stuff in that film. Because today they do a lot of stuff by computers. Keaton
right.
didn't have that.
No, no, no.
Like there was a scene, there was clothes on the ground and a wig or something. He jumps out this window and lands, and suddenly he's up and he's got this stuff up on him, as the wig and the women's clothes and whatever. And
Right. Well,
and I'm like,
his history as a
yeah,
little
he was a
kid.
stunt guy. Yeah.
His father, he was part of the family act, and his father would like throw him into the audience when he was like 7 years old. And, just he learned to do all that stuff.
Oh, he was incredible. He's That's a great choice, Buster Keaton.
Mr.
We did Sherlock Jr. and
Yeah.
the General and so much stuff. It's amazing the stuff they were able to do back then, whereas today, we take a lot of that for granted.
Right, because CGI can do it.
Yep. But Buster didn't have that, and yeah, and that was 1924, I think. Sherlock Jr. come out. That was the year my grandfather was born. And it was like, wow, this is what they were doing. That was early cinema.
Right.
But Buster Keaton was brilliant. I agree.
Yeah.
Very
Uh,
funny guy.
yeah. All of that. I'm trying to think of when I mean, I love Jerry D. Martin and Jerry Lewis move. I'm
Hmm.
just saying when I was a little kid, if I rewatched them, I don't know what I would think. And who else was there? Uh, I forget. But yeah, Buster Keaton I hold up as an
Yep.
icon.
Oh,
And
yep.
and then later, I mean, when people say, "What's your favorite?" I think Doctor Strangelove is
Oh,
maybe my
gee.
favorite movie because it's a comedy. It's what I learned at the committee. It's a comedy, but there's a lot of powerful meaning
Yep.
behind that kind of comedy.
Oh, Peter Sellers playing three very, very different characters in it. And I think my favorite, although a lot of people might say Doctor Strangelove, but I loved him playing the president.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it when he was playing the president. And George C. Scott was so great in this, um, trying to negotiate, we could have it so that we can have this many people killed versus this many people killed.
He says, here's how much I love that movie. And we'll lose maybe 10, 20 million our boys, and that's tops.
Like I'm, I'm like, wow. But I loved it. And Slim Pickens riding the missile down and waving his
Oh,
cap and
that's a fantastic movie.
yeah, Sterling Hayden. Like it was a tremendous movie. Stanley Kubrick made a lot of great movies.
He did indeed.
Yeah. But Doctor Strangelove was definitely funny. You can't fight here. This is the war room.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I love Peter Sellers when he's playing the president, when he's on the phone with the what was a Russian ambassador or whatever there, and he's like, "Of course I like, of course I like to talk to you. Of course,
right.
I think we have a little problem here. Well, how do you
President
think I feel?"
Dmitry Kissoff is
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy, he was so funny in that movie. So it was brilliant work by Peter Sellers, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, Peter Sellers was amazing.
Yeah, and he almost had four roles because originally he was supposed to play the Slim Pickens character too, but I
Really?
forget why he didn't end up playing it. But Slim Pickens, how can you not see that film and have that image of him riding that missile down and waving that cowboy hat?
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so some great stuff there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, is
Yeah,
there anything else you'd like to plug and promote on here? Give the name of the address for your web page for
for people.
yeah,
It's www dot laughter for a change. And the four is spelled out FOR, laughter for a change.org.
absolutely. Yep, I've been checking that out on here when you sent me your info. I think it's a great cause.
Thank you.
But yep, it's a fantastic cause and something I definitely agree on. And but yeah, I'd love to have the bunch of you on here. If you guys want to do that, maybe sometime next year. I'll let you guys get through Christmas.
Yes, we plan to do that. We've
Yeah,
got flying, people are flying this year, right? For the first time in years. So
yeah,
everybody keep in town.
yeah. Well, I'm going to Toronto for a few days, visit some friends down there, and then I'm coming back here for Christmas because my brother and his wife are going away, and I won't have anybody to watch my cat.
Oh man, you got to take care of the cat.
My cat's my mancha. He's such a mancha, he's over there asleep. But I mean, I enjoyed going back in memory lane and talking about American Graffiti and Caveman, you
Yeah,
know. Yep.
yeah.
By the way, what does your wife think of these movies?
She loves them. I mean, I don't think I knew her when I was, but how could you be a young American who has had your own version of that experience and not love Graffiti? It's a beautifully done movie. And Caveman is like, well, first of all, she came down for the last couple of weeks, and she also is a at this point, a good friend of Carl Lumbly through me. And what's not to love about Caveman too, you know? I mean, it's just a goof from beginning to end. And she
But
also knew, you know, from her little time, she also knew until he passed away, Jack and Shelley Long. And so, you know, this is when you do what I do, you go from, you know, essentially job to job, and then you look back and some of the people from some of those jobs are like your circle of friends.
does she have possession of your costume in Caveman? Make you wear it?
No, no, we left that and somehow the bird disappeared, and at a certain point I got rid of the club because, you know, you can only hang on to this stuff for so long before it starts being weird.
Oh, come on. That's a reason to hang on to it.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it, sure.
I mean, she could take you and Carl out on Halloween trick or treating, and you guys would be fit right in.
I'm not sure she'd be interested in doing that, but thanks for the idea. I'll run
You,
it by her
you
next
guys could dress in your caveman costumes.
time.
Maybe you could have one of those, what was that big, large what, bird there between you. You could wander the street.
Well, the other way to look at it is, you know, it's just a job, and when you're done, and you move on.
That was pre-Kentucky Fried Chicken, that bird.
Probably.
But nonetheless, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
In what sense would you like that plug to?
Just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
This is Ed Greenberg, and I'm listening to Greg's
Greg
cut.
Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Okay, Ed Greenberg here, listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Absolutely. And we're celebrating 50 years of American graffiti. Wow. Amazing since you're 39. How does that happen, huh?
It's the magic of movies.
Yes. And of course, Caveman will reach 50 years soon at some point, but it just hit its 40th. What was it? 2 years ago. So it's good. It's 42 this year.
Uh-huh. Seems
Yeah.
like just yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, anyway, I want to wish you and your wife a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Greg,
Yep.
and,
And
and you as well.
have I wish you a very happy 2024. And yes, let's connect and do something for Laughter for a Change. I think that would be wonderful.
Okay. I,
Absolutely.
I will talk to you later. Thanks. This was fun.
God bless you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.